In this dark, black night, a fisherman was catching fish. The moonlight that night was exceptionally bright. Suddenly, the fisherman's net began to move. He knew that a fish had been caught in it. Now, the fisherman started pulling the net slowly, but it wouldn't budge from his grip. Meanwhile, a sound came from behind him, and as he turned to look, the water was stirring. Gradually, the sound grew louder, and it felt as though someone, or something, was approaching his boat from beneath the water. The fisherman grew afraid, but despite his fear, he dipped his head into the water. When he opened his eyes underwater, he saw something moving. Quickly, he pulled his head out of the water and began trembling. What was in the water, and why was the fisherman so terrified? A mystery like this lies hidden in the depths of the ocean, a tale so ancient that it's hard to distinguish between truth and rumor. That night, what the fisherman saw swimming was a Leviathan. The name Leviathan instantly conjures an image of a massive sea monster, but what exactly is this Leviathan? Is it a myth, or is it truly something enormous and terrifying, lurking beyond human sight even now? The earliest mention of the Leviathan appears in the Bible's Book of Job. There, it's described as a colossal sea creature capable of sinking thousands of ships at once. It's said to be so powerful that only God can defeat it. Beyond the Bible, it's also referenced in the Jewish Bible, where it's portrayed as a massive serpent living in the sea, capable of turning day into night. It's described as an evil force that can corrupt people's minds. But it's not just the Jewish Bible. Babylonian texts refer to it as Tiamat, a sea monster. Similarly, in Norse mythology, there's mention of Jörmungandr, a serpent that encircles the entire world, often called the world snake. If you've played God of War, you've likely seen Jörmungandr there too. Now here's the strange thing. Different civilizations, with different names, mention similar ancient creatures. This raises a thought-provoking question. If these cultures lived in different times and places, how did they all describe such similar beings in their texts? Is it mere imagination, or has the truth faded into the dust of time? The significance of the Leviathan isn't limited to just a sea monster. It carries deep religious meaning too. In the Bible, it symbolizes sin and evil. It's even considered a form of Satan attempting to ensnare human souls. In Jewish tradition, it's depicted as a creature that will ultimately be slain by God. Different cultures describe it differently, but one thing remains common: its connection to fear. Some historians believe the Leviathan never truly existed, but rather people mistook certain deep-sea creatures for it. For example, in ancient times, when people knew little about the oceans, seeing a whale or a shark might have led them to imagine a sea monster. During the Viking era, a giant squid was spotted and dubbed the Kraken. Today, many believe the Leviathan might have been a Megalodon, a shark over 50 feet long. Ancient people could have seen it as the Leviathan, and perhaps the Megalodon inspired these tales. But some historians link it to another ancient creature, like Lurk, a massive prehistoric marine reptile. Since details about the Leviathan remain unclear, could it be buried among these ancient beings? The story doesn't end there. Even in modern times, sightings have raised questions about the Leviathan's reality. In 1997, a strange sound was recorded on sonar, nicknamed the bloop. It was so loud it could be heard up to 5,000 kilometers away, and science still can't explain its source. Could it have been the Leviathan? Around the same time, a group of divers reported seeing an enormous sea creature, larger than a blue whale. Unlike the slow-moving blue whale, this creature was incredibly fast, almost teleporting through the water. People neither fully believe nor dismiss its existence, because in 2012, another sighting occurred. Japanese researchers in the Pacific Ocean spotted a bizarre creature so large that their camera couldn't capture its full body. Some called it a giant squid, akin to the Kraken, but many researchers believe it was something else. Perhaps the Leviathan. Signals have been detected in places like the Bermuda Triangle, the Mariana Trench, and the Pacific Ocean, possibly from a sea creature. These movements are so swift that gathering solid evidence remains nearly impossible. Could this be the Leviathan? But here's one final thing to discuss. Recently, you might have seen a viral video from Indonesia showing something serpent-like swimming behind an island. From a distance, it looks like a giant monster, But the truth is, it was just waves timed perfectly, leading people to call it the Leviathan. Those who named it so likely don't even know what a Leviathan might look like. For comparison, consider a famous image of Earth where, below South America, a serpent head-like shape forms in the ocean currents. So think about it. If a real Leviathan existed with a head that massive, would you call a small wave in Indonesia a Leviathan? That seems far-fetched. Clearly, whether the Leviathan exists can't be proven without evidence. Yet it undeniably lives in countless books. Science offers possibilities, like deep-sea gigantism, a theory suggesting creatures in the ocean's depths grow unusually large. This could explain why, when they surface, we see them as sea monsters, like the Kraken seen by Vikings or even sea serpents. The Leviathan might be such a creature, growing massive over centuries in the deep. But who are we to say? We've only explored 5% of the oceans, leaving 95% uncharted. Only time will tell the truth, if we choose to explore it. While we dream of space, seeking aliens and colonizing Mars or the Moon, the 95% unexplored ocean holds endless intrigue. Perhaps you're curious to learn more too. Even if we don't explore, we know the deep sea hides bizarre creatures, like the doomsday fish or the anglerfish, tied to tales of calamity. There are others too, which I'll cover in a separate video to reveal what truly lurks in the deep. Speaking of doomsday, could the Leviathan end us all? In the real world, we don't know, but in video games, it's a star. From God of War, Jörmungandr to the sea monsters in Pirates of the Caribbean, and Percy Jackson, these creations draw inspiration from the Leviathan. Proof may never come, it might not exist, or if it does, the sightings we've had aren't conclusive enough. So I ask you, is the Leviathan real, or are all these claims just myths? Science has thrown up its hands, and we've yet to explore the oceans fully. Until that day, until the Leviathan reveals itself, we'll assume it's alive, lurking somewhere in the water. This tale of calamity we've begun might just end at the Leviathan's hands. If you love mystery stories like this, be sure to subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in the next video.